Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matt, and today I want to talk to you about the Battlefield 1 beta. Like 2 weeks after the beta has ended, but I'm finally getting the chance to sit down and actually talk about it. But one thing I do want to make clear very quickly is that you'll notice in this game I am still the Americanadian in my avatar and everything. That's because this was recorded before I decided to really go through with the channel rebranding. So that is why I have my old avatar and everything and that, and why I'm not updated in this video. But that is besides the point. Let's start really talking about Battlefield 1 and why I really enjoyed this game. This was a really fun beta. I enjoyed it significantly more than I anticipated I would, and I thought I would enjoy it going in because it's kind of a return to form for me. I played a lot of Call of Duty and Call of Duty 2 when I was younger, and I played Medal of Honor, and I really loved the World War II era. I grew up in the height of those games. I was in my formative teen years playing Call of Duty, Call of Duty 2, and I was actually graduating. I had just graduated when Call of Duty 4 came out. I had just gotten out of high school. So that kind of gives you an idea of where I was with World War II shooters. And this is such an amazing return to form for me because it's not World War II, but it is roughly the same era. You have bolt action rifles, single action rifles, semi-automatic rifles, submachine guns, and then like machine guns and cannons and all these other things. You don't have assault rifles, you don't have anti-aircraft rocket launchers, you don't have all this high-end technology that basically amounts to magic in modern games. Games these days, Call of Duty and the other more modern Battlefield games and Titanfall and everything, use technology in the same way that you would use magic in an RPG. You press a button and a thing happens. You don't have to go through the various steps to make it happen. And having these more low-tech items at your fingertips really changes how you approach combat, how you approach every situation, and how you actually think about the battlefield. And I really honestly think this is the perfect time for an old World War style game to come back, because we're kind of over inundated with all of these big, fancy, modern, and future tech games. You've had Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, you had Call of Duty Black Ops 3, you have Call of Duty Infinite Warfare coming up, there's Destiny, there's Titanfall. There's so many games that are like, hey, we're in the far future. We have like laser weapons and exosuits and jetpacks and all of these different capable things that are basically amounting to magic, as opposed to making you feel like you have boots on the ground and you're in the nitty-gritty warfare, and that's what this brings. This brings it back to the nitty-gritty because you don't have all these insane abilities at your fingertips. You are on the ground, you have your gun, you have some grenades, you might have a couple pieces of equipment at your disposal, but all in all, it is really just you and the other people, and it is amazing. It feels really good, and I don't know if it's mostly because I missed this type of first-person shooter, or if it's actually that amazing to finally sit down and play that, but let's talk about some of that equipment that is in this World War I era. Now, you have no assault rifles, you have no amazing anti-vehicle weaponry, but you do have like submachine guns, semi-automatic rifles, single action rifles, like bolt action and everything. You have machine guns, you have pistols, and then you have some other things like an anti-tank rifle, you have like anti-tank grenades, gas grenades, all sorts of these basic but still very violent and what's the word I'm looking for? Volatile weapons that do a lot of damage and are very fun to use. Okay, so let's go through the different weapons. The submachine guns are short range, they're automatic, they do lots of damage up close, but they empty their magazine very quickly, and they are very difficult to use down range. They are very well balanced in that regard. They are meant for close quarters, like run and gun combat. But when you go up against people with rifles, which is the majority of everyone else, you're gonna be stuck out in the open with no way to really fight back except for a pistol that maybe holds 6 to 8 rounds. Alright, then we move on to the medic weapons. The medics in this game get the semi-automatic rifles. They get something like you would see like the I'm trying to think of a a more modern weapon to compare to, but just a semi-automatic rifle. I'm having a brain fart because I'm actually trying to think about something. They're semi-automatic rifles, which means you pull the trigger once, it fires one round, you pull the trigger again, it fires another round. And these weapons are very good at the medium range, and even close range. They're good at close range, but they get a little outgunned by SMGs, and they're good at medium range, and they're okay at long range. They fit that role very well. They're a very versatile weapon, which is, I think, something that the medic needs, because the medic is going to be in every different stage of combat. They're going to be up close when they're trying to heal their teammates. They're going to be staying back behind so they don't run, because they're not going to be the first people to rush into combat because they don't want to die. They need to stay alive so they can revive their teammates and they can heal their teammates. So they're going to stay back when everyone else rushes in. So the rifle's good for putting out the support fire, and then when they move in to heal and revive their teammates, they have a weapon that is kind of capable at close range, but still outclassed by the more automatic weapons. And then at super long ranges, they're outclassed by the bolt action rifles that are available to the scout class, the sniper class. And the scout weapons, the bolt action rifles that have scopes, and there is an iron-sighted one in the beta, or there was. These weapons are very bad at close range because you have to be a very good shot, and they don't always kill in one shot, but they're very good at medium range, and they're very good at long range. They're great for picking off people from a long distance. They're great for spotting enemies. They're great for, you know, scouting the battlefield, giving your team information. And the iron-sighted one, the one without the scope, is pretty good in close range if you can make use of it, but you cannot really take on more than one person at a time. You're really going to be able to go up against one person, take them down, and move on to the next. But if you run up against more than one person, then you're going to get gunned down because your weapon just doesn't have the rate of fire to put out the damage per second to be able to take them down before they can get you with basically any other weapon. So in those situations, you have to switch to your pistol, which means you're going to have limited ammunition, and it just means that you can't be as aggressive. You can still be aggressive and go into the front lines and do things, but you cannot rush into rooms. You cannot clear rooms without grenades. You have a lot of trouble without the element of surprise, so you cannot be a hyper-aggressive player. If you want to do that, you should switch to the assault class, because the assault class is very good at the run and gun combat. And then that leaves us with the machine guns that the support class gets. And I didn't play with the machine guns a lot, but from what I was able to use a little bit here and there, and from what I saw, they do their job well. They're very good at putting down high amounts of suppressive fire, but they're kind of unwieldy, and they're kind of difficult to use in even close quarters combat because they don't have the rate of fire to compete with the submachine guns. They fire a bit slower, their recoil is much more dramatic, and so at close range, a submachine gun will outgun them because they are much more accurate from the hip. And the light machine guns, however, are better than the submachine guns at range combat. They trade that close range capability for more, you know, medium, almost medium range capability, and when you crouch down or go prone with the machine gun, you are much more capable of putting down heavy amounts of suppressive fire and doing some real work to help your team out, watching points, watching, you know, the various objectives, and just watching choke points. And that's where that really came in handy, and also having the ability to resupply your own ammunition as a support player really made that all the better. And then you have the trip mines as a support player, so you really are good at just locking down an area, probably even better than the scout class. People kind of use the scout class to lock down areas, to aim down sights, down range, and try to pick people off and try to pick them out of these various choke points, but I actually think the support was better at that, just not many people tried it because it's Battlefield. You're going to have a lot of people wanting just to snipe people from across the map, or, you know, just try to do that, which you still see a lot of that. And that's not the game's fault that a lot of people just are like, I'm going to snipe and I'm going to stand way back here and I'm going to spend the whole game with a sniper rifle back here doing nothing to help my team. That's not the game's fault, but it's a Battlefield game. It's going to happen. So let's also talk about some of the equipment that you get at your disposal. You get various things. The class that I had the most experience with was the assault class. They got the anti-tank rifle, and I wanted to talk about the anti-tank rifle because I actually think that was a much more vital weapon than anything else in this game. I did not get it in this match, unfortunately. I did not have it at this point in time. But once you get the anti-tank rifle, taking care of vehicles becomes such an easier objective. because the vehicles in this game are very, very good, and you need something that you can attack them with from range. So, using the anti-tank rifle on a wall while prone, whatever, using it to take down these big tanks is very helpful, and there was a leveling bug in the game that did prevent people from unlocking things that were available in the beta, and so not everybody had access to the anti-tank rifle, and that's a shame, because if you get a couple people with anti-tank rifles, it's really easy to take down enemy tanks. Unfortunately, because of that, the tanks did kind of run amok throughout the beta, and that was actually kind of a big problem, and the tanks in this game are very resilient. And it's not just that the tanks are resilient and have a lot of guns on them and a lot of armor, it's also because there's a lack of capability to take them out. Like I said, one, people didn't have the anti-tank rifle, but also the assault classes really seems to be the only class with a really good set of anti-vehicle weapons. They get the dynamite, they get the heavy anti-tank grenade, and they get the anti-tank rifle. The scout does get these like weird anti-tank heavy bullets they can use, but they don't do nothing to the tanks. They might do things here and there, and maybe there's some ways that you can use them to take out tanks and other vehicles that I have yet to see, but from my experience, you really needed assault classes to take down the vehicles. And I don't think the vehicles are overpowered. I don't think they were at all. A lot of people seem to think that vehicles were ruining this game. The vehicles were big, they were slow, they were heavily armored, and they had a lot of guns to take people out with, but in the end, I think the real problem was they just respawned too quickly. I think vehicles respawned at too rapid of a rate to be able to suppress reliably. I think by the time you had destroyed one and then a land ship had respawned, I think it was too easy just to rotate through the vehicles and keep up the momentum using those. I think if there was maybe another 15 to 20 seconds, even that amount of a buffer on the vehicle respawn times would have been really good for making sure that the defending teams had the ability to at least regroup and set up their positions again and be ready for the next wave of assaults, because you have, not only do you have tanks just coming in over and over and over again, and you're killing them, and it seems like they're respawning faster than they're dying, you also have the people on top of that, and sometimes it's really difficult to stand against that momentum. And as the attacker, sometimes it's really hard to take out an entrenched vehicle, because if you don't have the ranged anti-tank rifle, you have to get up close to the tank to take it out, and then the defenders have all their guys with guns protecting the tanks, and then by the time you kill one, it feels like it's right back there again. So I think making sure that everybody that is capable of taking out the tanks has access to the equipment to do so, and then also making sure that the vehicles don't respawn so quickly that they're troublesome. Although I would think that once the game releases and there's no leveling bug, hopefully, that you can see plenty of assault players with all of the anti-tank rifles and all of the other weapons that they have access to, and maybe the tanks will die quicker and the respawn rate won't be that much of a problem for the different teams. So we'll have to see how that works out in the final game, but I do think vehicles did respawn just a little bit quicker than they probably should have. And speaking of vehicles, let's talk about the horses for a second. The horses in this game, oh my goodness, I've never seen a horse take a shot like that in real life. Although I must say, I've never seen a horse get shot in real life at all, so you know, I don't have anything to really measure this against, but I hit a horse with an anti-tank round, and it did not go down. These things can take intense amounts of punishment, however the riders cannot. It's very easy to kill the rider off of a horse, and that's really the way you're supposed to take them down. You just knock the rider off of them, because the reason the horses are so resilient is, one, they would be useless if they were any squishier because they're such a big target, and also it makes it it gives it the gameplay idea of you take a horse, you run into enemy territory to kind of cut them down with your sword, they kill you, and then they can take your horse and use it against your team. That's why the horse has more health from another standpoint, at least in my opinion. I think it does have a bit more health so that you can take it after you kill the person that was riding on it. Now, that being said, the horses were acting a bit weird. They were kind of warping the physics a little bit, running up walls, teleporting here and there, but they were pretty fun. It was so weird to just turn around and have a horse trample you down. I've never had that experience in a first-person shooter, and it was so awesome to see it because the horses were pretty easy to take down. If you saw the horse coming, you could just headshot the gunner, the rider off of it, and they were done for, and you could take the horse yourself. However, if they got in just the right area, came from the right direction, and flanked you or whatever, they could just run you over, hit you with the sword, do whatever they wanted to do, and it was awesome. I really thought the horses were an awesome addition to this game, and it was another element that made this stand out inside of a realm where shooters are getting more and more blended together in that futuristic aspect. I think having that grounded element was a really cool thing. Okay, let's talk about the bayonet charge. You'll see me use it multiple times in this match. I use it to cover ground really quickly a lot of times, and that's really the most use I got out of it. I did kill people here and there with the bayonet charge, but overall it was used primarily as a way for me to cover ground because you move so much faster when you're using the bayonet charge than when you're simply sprinting. Now, granted, you can't sprint for a little bit after you use the bayonet charge, but I didn't find that to be a problem because I had just covered so much ground. I was usually in cover afterwards, and that's where I mostly used it, and I don't think it was overpowered in any way. But a lot of people were complaining because they would get bayonet charged and they would get stabbed, and they would be like, oh, how can you fight that, da 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 da. Well, you can just shoot the guy, and if they were able to get the bayonet charge off, chances are they were going to be able to kill you anyways, because if they didn't take the time to do the bayonet charge, they could have just shot you, they could have walked up behind you and just used a melee attack. I don't think the bayonet charge caused any problems whatsoever, and honestly, if you're just sitting in the same spot and a guy comes around a corner and you're crouched down just waiting for people to come around the corner and he kills you, I don't really think that's the fault of the bayonet charge. You maybe should have been more ready, or maybe you shouldn't have been sitting in that exact same spot for long enough for you to become the target of a bayonet charge. So I think the bayonet charge is a really cool addition to the game. I don't want to see it go anywhere. I think it was another element that helped set this game apart from the other games in the field, in the genre. Let's get to, what do I have here on my list? I'm looking, it's not in order, so I'm kind of going through my list here. Gas mask, gas grenades, gas mask. I thought it was a cool mechanic. Throw on the gas mask, can't aim down sights at all. That was pretty good. Pretty cool, pretty well balanced. It made the assault classes a little more viable in that area because you can throw on the gas mask and hip fire. And then if you're sniping, you shouldn't really be in the gas anyways because you're probably going to be much further from it. So I don't think it was all that big of a deal, but it did kind of give people pause because they would have to take a moment to throw on the mask, and it would just slow your enemies down just a little bit. I think the gas grenades are pretty good, and I think it was really smart to give everybody a gas mask. All right, so now let's talk about some of the other aspects of the game from a technical standpoint. First of all, the game graphically was beautiful. I really played when I recorded on the lower settings because the game didn't run too awful well when I upped the graphics a bit. I do need to get a new graphics card, and that's actually something I'm looking at. My graphics card's a bit old, and so I want to upgrade it before the games come out, but overall, I was getting a really steady 60 frames per second. I could make it go higher, I'm pretty sure, but I just let it run at the 60 because that's what I record at, that's what I render at, so just let it all be the same across the board, you know? But the game did run very smooth, and I was playing on PC in case it hasn't been noticed here, but the game didn't have really any major technical issues. It did have a few lag and connection issues here and there, but that is a network issue. It's not always with the game. And I think the game looked good even on the lower settings. I think the game looked pretty good. I didn't notice any file size issues, nothing really weird was happening with the game. I thought the game was optimized well. After those first few days, they figured out whatever was wrong and they fixed it and the game ran well. So far, I haven't noticed any issues with it. It gives you plenty of options for things like field of view, gives you plenty of graphical options. Everything else, you have plenty at your disposal. But I am way out of time. I did not think I was going to be able to fill up this entire match. This was one of the best matches I had in the beta. I had a ton of fun with this game. I'm definitely picking this one up when it comes out. I am really excited for the Battlefield 1 beta. Let me know down in the comments section what you thought of the Battlefield 1 beta, what if you played it, or just from what you've seen of it so far, and, you know, have you ever played any, like, World War I or World War II shooter in the past? You know, do you have anything to compare it to, like the old Call of Duties or the old Medal of Honor games? Just let me know down in the comments below, and as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. My name is Matt, and I'll see you next time.